Hello, I'm Bill Coleman, and this is an episode of This is Worcester. Today, we're going to talk about a memorial that was placed up in Worcester to honor African Americans who had served the Second World War. Its dedication date was December 5th, 1943, 2 years after we had declared war on the Japanese and Hitler had declared war on us. We were officially in the Second World War. Well, Worcester had an African American community, or back then, we called ours colored citizens of Worcester, had enlisted in all aspects of the service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and they had served in several different theaters, Pacific Theater, the European Theater. They went out to fight for our country, to show our pride. Now remember, in 1943, all the services were segregated. So you had white soldiers, black soldiers, never to be in the same company at that time. So Worcester's contingent of 145 citizens of color who entered the forces made the community proud. It made Worcester feel a part. We had folks going in that were Italian and Irish and Lebanese and Polish and Greek, and all these folks were serving their country, and they were being standoff by tremendous crowds and bands, and they'd be paraded down to Union Station as they would go off to war. So Worcester's African American community in the early 40s wanted to do something to honor the service of colored citizens. So what they did was they erected a Hall of Fame. And this Hall of Fame is still 11 feet by 5 feet tall. And it was placed on property donated by then AME Zion Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, which was located at that time at 62 Belmont Street, which doesn't exist anymore. It was taken out when they built Route 290. But from 1943 to 1959, this Hall of Fame was a point of pride for Worcester's community, the whole of Worcester, but in particular, the citizens of color who lived in Worcester. Well, when the dedication took place on December 5th, 1943, then Mayor William Bennett was at this event, and it was a big event. We sang the Star Spangled Banner, there was poetry read, and it was a great unveiling of this honor roll to honor the citizens who were in the military serving, not knowing if we would ever see any of them come back. Now, in articles that were featured in the Telegram and Gazette, we know that some of the names there, Dr. John Goldsberry, Jr., who served in the military in the Second World War, later became a prominent physician in the city of Worcester. And Dr. John Laws, who was Worcester's first African-American or black principal of a school in Worcester. These people served in the Second World War. And then you have names like Price, Tony, and there were several women who served in the military. So from 1943 until 1958, that Hall of Fame stood proudly in Worcester. Now, with the oncoming announcement that Route 290, that we take for granted every day, was going to be built, there was an announcement that several neighborhoods along the path that was designated for 290 would be taken out. And those neighborhoods happened to be in what we called a pretty strong colored community in Worcester. So they took out these neighborhoods. They demolished houses, churches, small businesses to make room by eminent domain to make room for Route 290. It was promised to the Worcester community of color that the monument that they had erected to honor those who had served would be replaced. And in 1959, the monument came down. Now, monuments came down for several different groups: the Irish, the Polish, the Lithuanian, the Italian. Several different groups had memorials and monuments honoring those who were serving in the Second World War. Now, they were all replaced except one for the African American community. It was never replaced. Back in 1959, it was promised, and they said they would put it in storage, and then ultimately, when 290 was completed, they would find a suitable location to resurrect this honor roll and give pride once again to Worcester's community of color. Now remember, in the early 60s, we had the civil rights movement. We had the equal rights movement. We had the Vietnam War. We had all kinds of issues going on in this country. And it didn't become a priority to folks in city government then or state government. And many people have inquired very diplomatically. I never forget meeting some of the older folks in the early 70s who would say, you know, we don't know what happened to that Hall of Fame. We'd like to see it again. Well, sadly, many of these older citizens have passed away. And their dream of seeing an honor roll reestablished in Worcester has gone to deaf ears. I first inquired about it about 32 years ago with then city manager Francis McGrath. And he said, you know, Billy, we'll look into that for you and we'll get back to you on it. And then every couple of years I would ask, and well, we're still looking for it. And I would ask, and then things got quiet and the community got quiet, you know, because we thought there were other pressing issues. But this year in 2016, under leadership of several veterans groups and a call from the community, people have asked and have inquired with a bit more force, will you help us? Will you help us, City Council and City Administration, make a full court press to either find this memorial that may be housed somewhere or to help us reestablish it, because it is an important part of Worcester's history and a very important part of Worcester's African-American history. So all of a sudden we get people coming from all over. I filed a petition. The petition was referred to the Standing Committee on Military Affairs of the City Council, which at that meeting of the Standing Committee, the chairman, Mo Bergman, and City Councilor Connie Lukes listened to testimony from many veterans who had come up. James Bonds is Commander Post in the city of Worcester, and he spoke before the subcommittee on military affairs. And he said, listen, you know, we'd just like to have our honor roll back, and we want to know if you would help us with it. Well, after some discussion as to, you know, what it would be involved with in terms of the honor roll, then they said they referred it with agreeing to have the city commit to assisting the African-American community in reestablishing this honor roll. So what happened was it goes before the city council. And when it went before the city council on March 29th, what happened was the city council listened to the testimony of several people from the community. About 8 or 9 different veterans groups had shown up from all over central Massachusetts, and they made it clear that they were here to support their brothers in their attempts to reestablish this honor roll. So when people got up to speak, every one of them said, we want you to support the petition asking for this honor roll to be reestablished in the city of Worcester. And then the council listened very respectfully as every single person came up. And then it was time for the vote. And when the vote happened, many of the veterans in the audience stood at attention to listen, to see how the council would vote. And each counselor voted, and it was under City Councilor, District 1 City Councilor Tony Economo, who called for a roll call vote on this petition. And when he called for the roll call vote, the clerk took the roll, and it was called out. Lukes, yes. Rivera, yes. Bergman, yes. Rosen, yes. King, yes. Gaffney, yes. Toomey, yes. Russell, yes. Sandy Carlson Amaro, yes. And Mayor Petty, yes. All the city councilors voted unanimously to encourage the city administration to work with the African-American community in reestablishing of this honor roll that was taken down and never put back up. And when it happened, you could see the momentum in the room when everybody cheered at the vote. that this was a one step, the beginning step in reestablishing this honor roll to honor Second World War veterans who've already served. And to our knowledge, nobody is left alive who served on those early days. But their families, generations from them, are still here in the city of Worcester. Many of them have given up. Many of them were exhausted. And they thought, well, nothing like this is ever going to happen again. But we've created a first step to establishment of this. Now we're calling it a war memorial, but it was truly an honor roll that listed the active members who had went to serve. And now the community will be further educated on efforts as we work to reestablish this monument. And people can get involved in various different ways. Right now, it is just staying on your city councilors, making sure that you're in contact with our state representative. We need to hear from our state delegation, because when the monument was taken down, it was taken down under the auspices of the state building Route 290 right through Worcester. And, we need to hear the state delegation saying that they go on record supporting. So you have Senator Michael Moore. You have Senator Harriet Chandler. You have the state reps in our area. Mary Keefe is a great state rep. Dan Donahue is a great state rep. John Mahoney is a great state rep. You have these people who can assist, along with the other state reps in the Central Massachusetts delegation, who can assist Worcester in the establishment of this memorial. Dan O'Day is another one. And, these are great people who are committed to helping folks find fairness and justice. When it was originally discussed about the missing memorial, Mo Bergman said something to the veterans that were in attendance at his subcommittee hearing. He said, this wound that has been a part of the African-American community in the city of Worcester since 1959 must be healed. He said it very honestly. He said, this must be healed. Because when you talk to the folks at AME Zion Church, whose relatives were part of putting this all together in 1943, which meant that they actually started putting this together around shortly after the beginning of the Second World War. And it was their dollars, it was their efforts that helped build and establish this. Where we have no living descendants who were actually there that we're aware of for this dedication in 1943. We look today to set a goal that on December the 5th, 2016, that we can have the memorial rededicated. And that would be an opportunity for folks to come and witness living history. And what does it mean to, I ask, what does it mean to bring about a monument that honored people who went to war for this country, that fought for the freedoms that we take so for granted? And we see people today coming into this country enjoying the freedoms that these folks went out and celebrated and sacrificed their lives for. And when you look at how Worcester has always been a city of diversity, but when you look at how our diversity is changing forevermore now, with people coming again from all other parts of the world, coming to quench their hunger, their thirst for the freedoms that we provide in this community, through education, through business opportunities, through housing opportunities, where people who lived in refugee camps, for people who crossed borders in search of freedom, for people who came here illegally, and for us who went off to fight in several different theaters during the Second World War to allow America to live free. I ask the people of this community to make sure that you do contact your city councilors and don't have them put it on the back burner. The honor roll honoring the soldiers of color from the city of Worcester that was removed in 1959 and never put back must be replicated and placed and put in a place of prominence for the citizens of Worcester to come and to see, and for the African American community in Worcester to have a point of pride. It's very important that we do this. There will be many meetings coming up. As I suggested to you earlier, the veterans who came to the city council meeting were in full force. And veterans know that when you have everything they were taught in the military, my dad had taught me this because my dad served in the tail end of the Second World War and then went back to serve in the Korean War, that everything is a mission. So now the veterans, and I want to thank the Veterans Center out in Shrewsbury, the Veterans Center in Worcester, Vin Perone, Dennis Leary, the folks who I approached and said, listen, here's what is important to us, and the recruiting centers. And I said, this is important to us. And they said, Bill, how can we help? How can we? And they made phone calls to the mayor's office. And people who would like to contact the mayor's office to ask how they can get involved. The mayor's telephone number at the mayor's office is 508-799-1153. And let the mayor's office know that if there is an advisory committee, you would like to serve on that advisory committee for establishment of the Citizens of Color War Monument, and to help how you can assist. Because I'm sure we're hoping that the mayor will establish through the city administration a committee that will look at various locations and options. If there is a determined cost, which we're looking at monument makers all over the country to see how much they would charge to produce a replica of sorts better than the first one for the Citizens of Color honor roll. We're taking costs. We're looking at what it will cost, and if we have to go out to the community has already stated they'd be willing to lend a hand to help right this wrong, to help close this wound to Worcester's African American community. And folks like Phil Price, a veteran who appeared with me on the Jordan Levy show, and we want to thank Mr. Levy for allowing us to talk about this monument and how its importance to the community is uplifting. And he gave us all the time we wanted to talk on his show. And when Phil Price got on and said, my family's there, my relatives are still there. And the Price family is a very large family in Worcester. The Tony family, when Jack Tony spoke at the City Council Subcommittee on Military Affairs, he spoke, but he spoke from the heart. And he said, people don't have a lot of hope for this. He said, we've been ignored far too long, and we really want to see something happen now. And when James Bond got up and had spoken about it and had articulated what had happened down the road, he said, we must do this right. Now, there are some other players in here who have historically kept Worcester's history alive in the African American community. One is Dr. Thomas Doughton, a research professor up at the College of the Holy Cross, who had provided a actual picture of the original monument as was taken back in 1943. And it's all its regalia and how it looked. And, and people were very proud of that. And he has spoken about the times and the events. Now, remember, in 1943, Worcester was 5 years from losing its black city councilor. Charles E. Scott served on the Worcester City Council from 1917 to 1938, where he died in office and shut down the city of Worcester. And I'm sure while he was still alive, very active in the community, linking Worcester's African American community along with government officials. He represented Ward 3 in Worcester. And when you think of Worcester's history being interesting enough, even in the First World War, we had volunteers from Worcester's African American community, community of color, Nipmuc community, who joined hand in hand with Worcester's African American community through marriage and through families and generations. They served in World War I. They served in all military conflicts, and that was Worcester. So when people got together, 2 years before 1943, and said, we have to do something to honor our own. And they did. And they thought that would be there for perpetuity, but it didn't happen that way. 290 came through. Urban removal has taken over the city of Worcester. We moved a lot of things out, not only in 1958 through building of 290, but even further down the road in the late 60s, when we started tearing down about 17 neighborhoods in Worcester and making way for the then Worcester Galleria. And we needed to do that because Worcester was changing and industry was leaving, and we had a lot of boarded up businesses that were closing, and people were moving out to the suburbs. But this monument that honors people who served our country, it must be returned. So I asked the people of Worcester, again, to help us. Somebody may have some pictures of this Colored Citizens Hall of Fame and Honor Roll, and you may have some pictures. I mean, Worcester had a unique relationship with various different communities, and these folks knew what it looked like. They saw the articles in the Telegram and Gazette, and somebody might see it again. They may see a picture, and they may say, wait a minute, I remember that. People have said it. The front page of the newspaper on the 30th, it was March 30th, after the Tuesday night city council meeting on the 29th, front page, people read that article, and they read another article earlier, and they said, this has got to be something we have to do. We have to work on this. And so we are doing this today. Every media outlet has given us time, energy. I'm grateful for WCCA TV for allowing me to speak on this program, This is Worcester, about this monument and how it is important to return it to a place of prominence in the city of Worcester, so that the African American community can have something to celebrate, and we can the families whose relatives have given their life and in their service to our military, as some of them made great sacrifice, but others served their country, came home, and served their community with pride. So look at the pictures of the veterans. You can see the diversity in the veterans, that came to the city council meeting, and James Bonds and the other people who have done so much to try to get this gone. This will not go away. We're not going to sit back for another year or another time, and we're not going to sit back. We want this monument reestablished in Worcester, and the support that is coming from so many people to make this happen. The support is what is needed by the leaders in our community who are willing to stand in front of our city government and say, too much time has passed. We have long been ignored, and we asked your help to help us reestablish our monument. And when the council took its vote, unanimous, one by one, voted through roll call votes to help the African American community and to help the community in general, the community of veterans, community of caring citizens, work to reestablish this war monument. This is where it comes down to a community responding with love, with care, and strongly suggesting that, yes, we want to be a part of this. We want to see this thing through. We want to see it happen. So to folks, I would strongly suggest that you talk amongst the veterans in your family. Talk to your family and ask what you can do to assist the city in helping to reestablish and to replace this monument. Now, Mo Bergman, City Councilor Mo Bergman, is the chair of the Military Affairs Committee and has provided some leadership on the council. He was one of the councilors who spoke at great length, and the article that came out on the March 30th Telegram and Gazette, where it says, efforts begun to replace the monument. And he said, we're not going to let you down, folks. We're going to work. We're going to look at different options. We're going to make this happen because the community is ready to contribute what they need to. and the community is ready to see a celebration. And as I've spoken with the veterans groups, and they've said, hey, we're looking at a December 5th deadline for reestablishment of the monument, the celebration to mark the anniversary of the monument, and a point of pride in the city of Worcester. So this, when you think about 1943, December 5th, and you think about the community coming together to recognize the soldiers who have gone off to war, men and women, and they served in Burma, Japan, Italy, France, Europe, the Philippines. They served all over the world for the war effort in the Second World War. And they served in the segregated services of our country. It wasn't until Harry Truman became president that he signed an executive order of the president to desegregate the forces in our army. And it was not an easy thing. Many folks will talk about it that even during the 50s, things were still segregated. It took time for people from the North, the South, to learn to work together with African Americans. But we were all in there for the same cause. But when we came home to a different America. We came home to the same America that many soldiers will talk about and have written about. When they came home, they couldn't get GI Bills to buy homes in nice neighborhoods because it was redlining. They didn't come home to welcoming bands, thanking them for their service. No, they were African Americans. They were literally ignored, but they were welcomed in their church. They were welcomed in their community. And the first thing many folks did when they came home to Worcester is they walked by this Hall of Fame and they looked at their name and said, yes, that's me. I served, and I will proudly serve this country again. So let's make that happen. Our goal is December the 5th, 2016, to have a monument reestablished, placed in an area of prominence in the city of Worcester, a celebration to mark a milestone that Worcester and the administration would help heal people in this community. I'm Bill Coleman, folks, and this has been another episode of This is Worcester here on WCCA TV, and you can look at past episodes at WCCATV.com. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next edition of